According to Friedrich Nietzsche, debate, relentless argumentation, and an obsessive tendency toward intellectual overanalysis have been instrumental in the decay of great minds and the downfall of civilizations. A malaise he identified as originating with Socratic philosophy. Nietzsche's views on Socrates have been interpreted by different authors, with many seeing them as a complete rejection of Socrates, while others offer a more nuanced view. However, one thing is certain, as mentioned earlier: Nietzsche considered Socrates a major cause of the decline of Greek civilization. Nietzsche's critique was focused on the Socratic method, particularly the use of dialectic, which he believed caused more harm than is often recognized. Let's discuss how, according to Nietzsche, Socrates led the Athenians to their lowest point, and what he considered the ideal way to live a better, happier, and more content life. Socratic Dialectics, the fall of the Greeks. Socrates belonged to the lowest of the low. Socrates was a mob. You can still see it for yourself, how ugly he was. The pre-Socratic Athenians, particularly during the height of their empire in the 5th century BCE, often operated under a worldview that celebrated power and dominance. They believed that strength was its own justification, as captured in the famous line, "The strong do what they can, and the weak suffer what they must." This philosophy reflected their view of natural law, where might determined right, and the powerful shaped the world to their liking simply because they had the ability to do so. The Athenians saw themselves as aristocratic and superior, embodying high-minded ideals that they themselves created. They believed they were the architects of meaning, unbound by traditional moral constraints. In their eyes, they were the creators of what was good, rooted in their power and cultural sophistication. This self-image fueled their sense of entitlement and their disdain for those who could not match their strength or intellect. In many ways, the Athenian ethos during this period resembled the pragmatic and power-focused ideas later associated with Niccolò Machiavelli. They valued cunning, strength, and the ability to manipulate circumstances to their advantage. For the Athenians, moral considerations were secondary to maintaining their empire and asserting their supremacy. This mentality often led them to view diplomacy, reason, or restraint as weaknesses, preferring instead to dominate through force and fear. Later came the Socratic tradition, which championed reasoned debate and the pursuit of universal truths. Socrates challenged every prominent figure of his time intellectually. The pre-Socratic Athenians often dismissed such approaches as impractical or even subversive. Socratic dialectical methods, which encouraged questioning established norms and values, were viewed by many as a threat to the stability and authority of their society. These methods, often critical of power for its own sake, were seen as undermining the energy and ambition of youth, who were encouraged to act decisively and assert their dominance rather than waste time in philosophical reflection. Friedrich Nietzsche offered a scathing critique of Socrates, seeing him as a figure who, despite his philosophical brilliance, represented a turning point that weakened the spirit and vitality of ancient Greece. Nietzsche described Socrates as an ugly man, both physically and spiritually. According to Nietzsche, Socrates' physical appearance, a snub nose and bulging eyes, was often mocked by Athenians. His lack of traditional beauty and social power placed him on the margins of Athenian society. Unable to wield influence through strength or wealth, Socrates turned to his intellect and words, which Nietzsche saw as tools of subversion. Nietzsche believed that Socrates introduced the need for justifications and rationalizations into Greek culture. Before Socrates, Nietzsche argued, the Greeks were guided by instinct, passion, and a sense of aristocratic self-assurance. They acted decisively and with confidence, embodying what Nietzsche admired as the will to power. Socrates, however, disrupted this natural order with his relentless questioning. By encouraging people to examine their values, question traditions, and demand logical consistency, Socrates replaced instinct with doubt. For Nietzsche, this was the beginning of a decline in Greek vitality and strength, as the focus shifted from action to endless reflection. The Socratic method, Nietzsche argued, poisoned the youth of Athens by instilling a culture of doubt. Where once the young Athenians might have been bold, proud, and action-oriented, they became hesitant and introspective under Socrates' influence. Nietzsche believed this method undermined the confidence and instinctive power that had made Athens great. The constant questioning of values and beliefs, in Nietzsche's view, eroded the foundation of a strong state, creating a mindset where individuals became overcautious and overly reliant on reason. Nietzsche famously referred to Socrates as the gadfly of Athens, a title Socrates himself embraced. But for Nietzsche, this was not a compliment. The gadfly, by constantly stinging and irritating, disturbed the natural order of Athenian life. Socrates, in Nietzsche's eyes, was a pest who disrupted the flourishing of a culture that had previously thrived on instinct, beauty, and power. According to Nietzsche, all of this could have been avoided. The Greeks could have remained at the top if everyone had simply relied on their instincts rather than rational arguments, both for themselves and for others. This all could be applied to modern times as well. The power of instincts. Instincts as a tool of happiness. Friedrich Nietzsche believed that instincts were the essence of life, the natural forces that guided humanity toward vitality and fulfillment. He argued that actions, especially those taken by the powerful, should not require justification. To Nietzsche, the need to rationalize or explain one's actions was a sign of weakness, a betrayal of one's innate strength. True power, in his view, lay in acting instinctively, without hesitation or doubt, a belief that closely aligned him with Niccolò Machiavelli. Like Nietzsche, Machiavelli emphasized the raw and practical exercise of power, free from moral constraints. Both philosophers were deeply criticized for these ideas, as they rejected conventional notions of ethics in favor of a more primal, instinct-driven approach to life. Nietzsche believed that repressing one's instincts would inevitably lead to dissatisfaction and inner turmoil. Instincts, for him, were an integral part of human nature, and suppressing them was akin to denying life itself. He argued that when instincts are stifled, they do not disappear, but return in destructive ways, undermining the individual. To live fully, Nietzsche maintained, one must embrace these natural drives, just like hunters who act in the heat of the moment, or cricket players who make split-second decisions that lead to triumph. If these individuals paused to analyze or reason, the opportunity would vanish, and failure would follow. Nietzsche saw this immediacy as the hallmark of instinct and the key to success. In contrast, Nietzsche regarded those who overanalyzed and hesitated as slaves to their thoughts. He also described Socrates as a noble slave, someone bound by his relentless need to think, question, and justify everything. This constant self-reflection, Nietzsche argued, was a form of servitude that undermined the strength and spontaneity of life. For Nietzsche, happiness was not found in abstract ideals or moral frameworks, but in the fulfillment of instincts. He identified 5 basic instincts, often tied to power, creativity, self-preservation, and the will to dominate or transcend, and believed that following these instincts was the truest path to joy. Anything else was an artificial construct, imposed by society to control and weaken individuals. Nietzsche's famous question, "Do we argue because we believe or because we cannot act?" encapsulates his disdain for those who rely on reasoning over instinct. He viewed excessive argumentation and rationalization as signs of inaction, a failure to embrace life's immediacy. This all led to Nietzsche's 2 moralities, herd morality and master morality. A man of master morality is the one who is the most powerful, called the Ubermensch. The Ubermensch represents a new kind of human being, one who creates their own values, follows their instincts, and embraces life with unrestrained vitality. Nietzsche admired figures like Napoleon, who embodied this ideal by exercising power instinctively, taking risks, and shaping their destiny without concern for conventional morality. The whole concept of not arguing can also be useful in our daily lives in modern times. which I will be discussing in the coming chapter of the video. Modern Man and Nietzsche. Arguments have been a double-edged sword throughout history. On one hand, they have driven critical thought, challenged outdated norms, and fostered societal progress. Philosophical debates, scientific inquiry, and political discourse have all contributed to the advancement of human knowledge and the development of societies. However, Nietzsche warned that arguments often lead to chaos, overthinking, and inaction. Endless reasoning without decisive action can paralyze individuals and societies, creating confusion rather than clarity. In many cases, arguments lead nowhere because they focus on theoretical disputes rather than practical solutions. For instance, prolonged debates over ideologies or moral frameworks may stir passionate discussions but fail to change tangible realities. Nietzsche believed that an overemphasis on rational thought and justifications often leads to hesitation, self-doubt, and stagnation. Those caught in this cycle become slaves to their own thinking, unable to take decisive action. In contrast, entrepreneurs and business people who defy societal norms reject the rigidity of 9-to-5 jobs and follow their instincts exemplify Nietzsche's Ubermensch. These individuals challenge herd morality, trusting their vision and inner drives rather than conforming to societal expectations. By taking risks and breaking free from conventional paths, they create new values and reshape industries. They act decisively, often in defiance of criticism, and succeed because they trust their instincts over collective doubt. Rational thinking, while valuable, can lead to overthinking and indecision. For example, people often spend so much time weighing the pros and cons of a decision, whether to start a new project, pursue a career change, or take a personal risk, that they miss the opportunity altogether. The fear of failure or uncertainty, fueled by endless analysis, leaves many in a state of confusion, ultimately leading to inaction. Nietzsche saw this tendency as a weakness, a sign of being trapped in the herd mentality. To Nietzsche, the Ubermensch rises above this by following instincts and acting boldly. They embrace uncertainty, take risks, and learn from action rather than endless deliberation. While arguments and rational thinking have their place, Nietzsche believed they must not replace instinctive action. True progress and fulfillment come from striking a balance, reasoning where necessary, but always being ready to act decisively when the moment demands it.